Hello, I'm Casey Phillips and I'm the Business Manager for Sophos at TD SYNNEX.
And I'm Sean Day, the Sophos Business Development Manager.
We're here today in our state-of-the-art Business Solutions Centre in Bracknell with some of our experts to talk to you about Sophos Firewall.
Sophos Firewall is recognised as a strong performer in the Forrester Wave and a Gartner Customer's Choice for Network Firewalls 2022.
Sophos Firewall is redefining the next-gen firewall space with unmatched visibility, protection and response.
The Sophos Firewall ecosystem enables unique and powerful benefits that can extend your protection and network.
Jon and Lucian will be up next to talk you through and show you the Sophos Firewall features and benefits from SD-WAN to delivering better security outcomes.
Hi everyone and welcome to the Sophos Firewall Workshop. So let me introduce myself first of all. My name's Jon Hope, I'm Senior Technology Evangelist at Sophos. I won't bore you with all of my career, but suffice to say I've been at Sophos since 2011 and I've enjoyed various different roles during my time here. Now I spend most of my time talking about the great products and services that we offer and empowering you to help your end users out through all of the great products and services that we offer. Of course, it's not really about me, it is about the content that we're going to cover today. So now that we've got the welcome out of the way, the next thing on the list, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Then we're going to look at 3 different ways that we can sell the Sophos Firewall. We're going to focus on each one of those in a little bit of detail. And I'm delighted to be joined by Lucian, who's going to take you through some technical demos associated with those different themes. And we'll then wrap up and close the session out. So, the elephant in the room. Yes, we get it. I certainly have been in the firewall industry for a very long time. I am acutely aware that firewall sales are not necessarily always the most straightforward, and it does often require a little bit more technical expertise and a longer term conversation with your customers and prospects. However, what I'm trying to convey during this session is that you don't have to be an out and out expert. You are surrounded by a large number of technical resources that will be able to help you out. So you're going to meet Lucian in a short while, and obviously he has a team of people at TD SYNNEX that can help you out with your pre-sales questions and inquiries. At Sophos, we also have our own pre-sales engineers as well. So you don't have to be an expert, you just need to be sharp enough to spot the sales opportunities, initiate that beginning demand, and then we'll work together to bring those opportunities through to fruition. So, quick bit of orientation on what a firewall is and what it does. I'm sure many of you know this already, but it doesn't do any harm to do a quick refresher. So the firewall is basically there typically to separate 2 different zones of trust. In most cases, it's separating the inside estate, the network that we know and control and operate, from the outside world, the internet at large, which is obviously full of potential security challenges. So it sits in the middle there to broker connectivity to the internet and to control what is allowed out of the organization from your internal network. However, the firewall has evolved enormously, so it is able to route traffic through to places that maybe you own and want to make available, but you also want to protect. If you're hosting things like web services, they will often live inside your DMZ. And it's also there to help out increasingly in the modern world to connect remote users into our environment, maybe connecting satellite offices into the environment as well. So the firewall has a lot of tasks. But because of where it sits at the edge of most networks, it's also a great place as well to do additional things like additional security tasks around virus scanning, intrusion detection, for example. Also there to control things like web content filtering as well and decide what kind of websites users can go to. So the firewall has a lot of tasks associated with it. It is also flexible in its deployment model as well. So most of the time in our diagrams, you'll see pictures of our XGS series of appliances, but that's not the only way that you can consume a Sophos Firewall. We do offer it as a virtual machine as well, so it will run on a variety of different hypervisors. If a customer wants to run in a virtual environment, we can do that. And we also have versions of our Sophos Firewall that can live in the public cloud as well. So it can sit there to protect cloud-based assets, whether it be in Amazon Web Services, Azure, to name but a few. The point I want to convey during this session, as I already mentioned, is that there are so many different sales messages and so many different sales conversations you can have around the firewall that there is a real danger of you trying to become an expert in all those different things and boil the ocean. So what I'm going to present to you during this session is a number of key issues that we actively see is driving firewall demand. So we're going to focus on those things and really going to hone down the talk tracks associated with those different key issues so that you can find those opportunities. And ultimately what this means is we'll be offering up during today's session 3 different ways that you can sell and promote the Sophos Firewall. So let's have a look at each one of those in a little bit of detail. We're going to look at how the Sophos Firewall and the Sophos ecosystem at large can help to reduce the total cost of ownership of a security estate. We're also going to look at how the Sophos Firewall can help organizations deliver applications in a secure and reliable fashion and maybe reduce some of the costs associated with application delivery as well. And then we're going to look at better security outcomes. So we're going to look at how the Sophos Firewall can protect our users better and how the Sophos Firewall integrates with the wider Sophos security portfolio. So let's look at the first topic in a little bit more detail. Let's have a look at how the Sophos Firewall can reduce the total cost of ownership of a security estate. So first of all, the world of IT in general and the world of cybersecurity is incredibly complex. We have a large different variety of operating systems and platforms these days. We have complications like software as a service. We have partner organizations connecting in. And then we have the complexity associated with the vast array of different cybersecurity solutions that are out there. So there's a huge different quantity of cyber solutions, and it can be very, very frustrating for an end user organization to try to manage this whole diverse estate. It can also be incredibly expensive. It can take a lot of time to manage these individual solutions, maybe not the most cost-effective way of running your cybersecurity estate. And it's potentially bad for security as well, because unless you've set up each of these tools individually to their optimum levels, then you might actually be inviting risk into the organization. So some people have this concept that maybe by having different security solutions, they are better protected in some way. But actually, if you can deploy cybersecurity that's cohesive and works together, that could ultimately be better for security overall. And of course, we'll be focusing on better security outcomes just a little bit later on. Suffice to say at this point that whether you're a customer that's managing your estate or whether you're a services provider managing your customers' networks, this idea of disparate tools, they're not really fit for purpose anymore. There are better ways of doing things. And that's really where Sophos Central comes into play. So Sophos Central is a management platform, a single pane of glass that allows you to manage multiple Sophos security solutions. So it combines the very best of all of our different solutions. So endpoint, server, firewall, switches, wireless access points, ZTNA, and also our services portfolio as well. So it's all available in one place, either for our customers to manage or for us to manage if we're managed security providers. And that brings enormous cost saving and enormous benefits to the organization. Basically, what we're doing here is trying to reduce the amount of input it's required to manage a security estate. And everywhere that we can reduce that input is ultimately directly reducing the overall cost of ownership of the security estate. So if you happen to be a partner, for example, then we have a wonderful partner dashboard that allows you to manage multiple different customers, manage their endpoints, their servers, manage their firewalls as groups, and create policies that can very easily be pushed out to all of the appropriate devices in a streamlined fashion using Sophos Central. So inherently reducing the amount of time it takes to manage the estate and allowing you to create those policies and adapt those policies as your organization's needs change over time. And also managing things like connectivity between sites as well. So we'll look at that in a little bit more detail when we start to look at secure application delivery. But basically the ability to link sites together, once again, in a really streamlined fashion. Wonderful. So that's enough talking from me. I've talked a lot in theory about how we can reduce the cost of ownership, but I'm going to hand over to Lucian now. And Lucian's going to give you a quick demo of Sophos Central and in particular the group management of firewalls, just to show you how easy it is to manage an estate. So Lucian, over to you.
Thanks, John. My name is Lucian Coman. I'm a technical pre-sales consultant looking after Sophos from TD SYNNEX. So as John was mentioned, today I'm going to show you how we can manage the firewalls from the Sophos Central. So with that in mind, you can see my screen. So This is the Sophos Central dashboard. So from here, I'll be able to see alerts coming from all the Sophos licenses that I have. On the left side, I have my firewall management. So I'll jump into that one. This firewall management dashboard comes with its own small dashboard that we can see the high alert, the medium, and the information alerts. Also, you see how many firewalls you have connected, and if you have any licenses that will expire soon, you'll be able to see any issues here. Also comes with a small web activity on which you can see the activity of the firewalls. Now we're going to go and drill down into the firewalls, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we can manage those Sophos firewall from a group perspective, and how we can actually manage them simple by not being forced to send an engineer on site to solve that issue that the firewall have, or to connect to that firewall to see any logs or to troubleshoot of those appliances. So this is the TD SYNNEX demo center specially created for Sophos. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to start adding a new firewall which is not in production currently to this group. So I'll edit the group. I have my firewall here. I will add that to this new group and just save it. Now that this firewall has joined my group, I can now start applying same policy firewalls for all those firewalls that belongs to this group. And you no longer need to go inside each firewall to do that, so you can actually manage them from here. Now I'm just going to go and do some manage policy, and in a second you'll see the same kind of similar visualization of the policy inside the SFOS of the Sophos firewalls. So now I'm in the rules and policy, and I can start creating firewall rules for those two firewalls that belong into my group. So I'll just add a new firewall rule. I will put a general traffic policy. Sorry about that. I can set up the position of that one, the action, and log the firewalls. Then I can start selecting the source. I can select also the source network and devices. I can select also the destination. I can also create a link NAT to this firewall rule. And that's done. Once this policy has been applied, all those firewalls belonging to this group will have the same policy. This is quite important because when you have multiple sites to cover, you want to have that streamlined security over multiple sites and not being bothered of having different rules for different firewalls. In this way, you might be compliant with the ISO perspective in terms of processes, and you can better manage out those firewalls. Now I'm going to go a little bit into the dashboard again and show you how other things you can do inside the Sophos Central. Also, you can check if your firewalls are up to date, so you can always check all the group's firewalls that they have the firmware up to date. On my case, they are. And also, you can do backups from here. So I have two current firewall on that one. I can always add a new firewall. And I can schedule when the backups will start. So I can be daily, weekly, or monthly. And also I can go and generate a manual backup for each individual firewall. Back to you, John.
Wonderful, thanks for that quick overview. So now let's have a look at the next pillar of sales that we can approach, and that's looking at the world of application delivery. Now the world of applications is really interesting. Businesses rely very heavily on a diverse set of applications, and gone are the days where those applications are hosted on-premise in a customer's data center. Most of the time now these applications are either delivered using the customer's public cloud infrastructure, or they might be applications that are consumed over the internet, so software as a service. Salesforce maybe being one of the best examples, and Office 365 being another great example. Because all these applications are delivered from the outside world, then the firewall, because of where it sits, becomes really intrinsic and really important in this process. So the firewall can really make or break successful software as a service application delivery to users. So it's really important to focus on how Sophos Firewall can help deliver these applications reliably to users. First thing I want to talk about, something which is a little bit difficult to demo, but it's worth talking about. Our firewalls are built around a very advanced product architecture, and essentially our firewalls have two brains. They have a processor, which is an Intel processor, which is able to do lots of security tasks very effectively, and we have our own dedicated custom silicon that we can use to pass pre-checked packets very quickly through the firewall. So we kind of get the best of both worlds here. We've got one brain which is doing all the heavy lifting security tasks, and we have our custom designed silicon which is allowed to pass important information and important applications through the firewall really quickly. You can kind of think of it effectively as some kind of priority lane, in this case maybe a bus lane or a high occupancy lane, that allows that really important traffic to get through the firewall very, very quickly. And that's a benefit that exists right across our hardware portfolio. So it doesn't matter whether it's a small environment or a large environment, all of our firewalls are built around the same architecture so that we can deliver those applications really quickly and really effectively. Of course, once we've got that architecture established, we still need to tell the firewall which applications are important. So in a moment or two, you'll see in more detail around application control, but essentially what this offers is the ability to prioritize which applications are really important to a business, while simultaneously looking at applications that maybe are unproductive, are bandwidth hogs, and putting some rules around those, whether that be blocking or whether that be restricting the amount of bandwidth. So what we're offering here are positive benefits around getting mission critical applications delivered quickly and effectively, whilst reducing the impact or blocking completely applications that are unproductive. It's important to emphasize as well that these rules can be changed based on obviously who the organization is, but also based on things like time of day, job roles. You know, for example, social media might be something that you would want to block for most of your employees, but if we're looking specifically at the marketing department, they might have a legitimate reason, and social media might be absolutely mission critical for them. So it's important to emphasize these rules can be tailored as and how they are required. I also wanted to look at building in reliability as well. Of course, if we live in a world where connectivity is a little bit sketchy, a little bit unreliable, that can really impact on productivity. You can imagine if you rely on some kind of remote CRM system and the internet goes down, everybody is sitting around and they're not able to do their jobs effectively. Coupled with that as well, of course, you've got a distributed enterprise. Often offices will be scattered all around the globe, and we need to make sure those things are connected together and they're connected in a secure and reliable fashion. Now, back in the old days, it might have been the case that organizations of that ilk would have invested in MPLS technology, basically going to their internet provider and asking them to link those multiple sites together using their ISP magic. And that's great to an extent, but it can be a little bit inflexible. It is often very, very expensive as well. And what we advocate now is the concept of SD-WAN. So taking lots of traditional standard internet lines and using them all to their maximum in order to build in connectivity that's reliable, robust, and effective for the appropriate applications. So what we're doing here is utilizing readily available internet connections, building in resiliency by having more than one internet connection, and reducing the connectivity costs, so moving away from dedicated lines, instead using more readily available and more cost-effective lines, whilst also making sure that the right applications go down the right lines. And Lucian's going to show you in a bit more detail about how we can route applications over the most appropriate lines when they're needed. And we can also use the power of Sophos Central, which we looked at earlier, to orchestrate connectivity between multiple sites. So instead of having to create lots of individual policies to link sites together, we can do that all within Sophos Central and very quickly create site-to-site connectivity where we need it to be. So once again, that's enough for me for a little while. I'm going to hand over to Lucian. Lucian's going to do the clever part now and show you how some of those services are delivered, how we can make applications more reliable, how we can make them run quicker, and how we can link sites together. So once again, Lucian, it's over to you.
Thanks, John. And now we're going to talk about application control. And on today's example, we're going to go around how we can block instant messages application running through our firewalls. So we're going to go to the same firewall management, and we're going to open the same manage policy. From here, we're going to go to applications, and we have three different sections. We can have a full application list, we can have application filter, and also have traffic shaping default. This also giving us around 3,532 applications known by Sophos Firewall on which you can create different policy and mitigate those risks of that specific application. On today's example, we're going to go and apply some application filter around instant messages. So I'm going to go and create block instant messages. And for now, I'm just going to allow all. Once this has been created, I can actually now go and create customization around that one. This also comes with a lot of filtering around category, risk, characteristics, different technology, which will help you to better select your application based on the outcome that you need. So in terms of application, we can have file transfer, general internet like instant messages or infrastructure. So for today's case, we're going to go for the instant messages. And then we can see how Sophos categorize those applications by risk. So on this, we're going to go for the high and very high. And also we can look at different characteristics of that one, like excessive bandwidth or transfer file, or the other type of technology like browser-based and their classification if needed. So with this one in mind, I've selected a high risk, and then I'm just going to save this policy. Once I have this one, I can easily go and apply that to a rule and policy. So I'm going to go to my rules and policy. I'm going to go to my general traffic. And now I'm going to go down here in an identity and control application. I can now see my block instance, the rule that I've just created. So I can save that now, and all of those applications will not be stopped from running into your environment. So let's see how everything works using a fictitious company as an example. This organization is going through a digital transformation and currently using SaaS-based application as Office 365 and Salesforce. IT is also using bespoke voice IP application to enable collaboration between multiple sites across the globe. They are looking to achieve a reduction in operational expenditure associated banking activity without losing any of the SLAs. As you can see, our device currently has an MPLS connection on port 2 and a regular broadband connection on port 3, and we have established a VPN across that regular broadband, and we can see that the tunneling is up and using the VPN status. And within policy, we get appropriate rules to allow internet and VPN traffic. Currently, most traffic is routed to the data center, but we want to offer a local break route so traffic can go directly via the internet to the SaaS applications. To achieve this, we first going to have to set up a SD-WAN profile. We'll set up two profiles, one for general traffic and one specifically for the voice IP. We're going to select VPN for the first link and MPLS for the second. For the SLA, we'll set custom SLA and leave the values as default. For the health check, we'll need to set destination which we can reach both by the VPN and by the MPLS, and we'll set the time to out value to a very low settings for faster failover. Let's save this configuration now. Now let's create the SD-WAN profile for the VoIP traffic. For the gateway, again, we'll select VPN as the first link and MPLS as the second. Again, we're going to define a custom SLA for this traffic, but this time we're going to change some of the values to reduce latency and jitter to make it more suitable for voice over IP applications. We can use helpful guide to set some ideas about the setting we should use for various different traffic types. For the health check, again, we need to set destination we can reach both by the networks and also the timer values to the absolute minimum. And when we finish, we can save. Now we got both profiles created. We can see that the VPN for the moment is preferred profile and is working very well against the SLA that we've set. Now let's create SD-WAN links to route traffic to the data center. First route will be for general web traffic. We'll use a destination-based SD-WAN route. We already have an IP address object created for the remote subnet, which matched this topology that we saw earlier. So we'll select that for the destination network. Under link section, we'll select the SD-WAN profile we created for web traffic and save it. Now for the critical VoIP traffic, we'll clone this route and use to create an application-based SD-WAN route. The firewall has already inbuilt traffic selector for VoIP, but if you want to be more specific or see how application objects are created, then you can create your own application rules and search for things. Now for the SD-WAN profile, we'll select the traffic that we created earlier for VoIP traffic and we'll hit clone. Let's reorder the routes and put voice IP at the top. Now that we've got our profile, let's do some testing. So for the example, if Alonso in the branch office wants to call Blake in the data center according to the profile, his traffic should be routed via the VPN. Now to test if failover is working successfully, we are going to introduce some latency into interface 3 and the system should automatically route the traffic via the MPLS connection on port 2. Now in order to make this connection, I'm using an OpenSIP client and UDP protocol, so let's go ahead and make the call. And you can see we're connected and have video up and running. This lets us see the XGS applies at the remote site. Now let's see the zero impact transaction in action. So what we're going to do is inject some latency on port 3 and say it's something response. This should cause a firewall to fail over to a multiple suitable link. You can see at the moment the file have selected VPN as a preferred route because it's well within the SLA criteria that we have set. Now let's create some noise and inject latency into the connection. You'll see that the green tick is immediately moved over the MPLS connection and you can see the transition has happened because the latency value for VPN are way above the level at which we set as acceptable. To monitor link performance, you can go to the diagnosis section and then click on SD-WAN performance. This will give you a graph that shows the historic performance of all your SD-WAN profiles. Let's go back to our video call. We are going to do this a physical unplug the MPLS connection and see if the system automatically fades back to the VPN connection. And you can see after a very short outage, the system is going to renegotiate their connection over the VPN connection and the call is maintained up and running it very quickly by shifting back to the VPN connection. So there's a little example of seamless file user over SD-WAN profiles. In order to monitor this and reorder these events, we have dedicated SD-WAN logging section. We have a lot of information contained here regarding things like SD-WAN profile health and leak status. To finish, we're going to look at how we can route some of the SaaS traffic out to the internet for this critical SaaS application. We're going to route them to the SD-WAN route and we'll click add. I will use application object as the prefied application that we've got created for the Office 365, Salesforce and Zoom, and we'll create a SD-WAN profile called SaaS. And then we'll select the appropriate internet gateways. We'll leave the rest of the configuration as default and we'll hit save to create a new profile. Now the new SD-WAN profile for SaaS application is created. You can see the usage by clicking the SD-WAN profile tab. It takes a few seconds to process, but you'll see in a moment that the firewall has accessed the SLA and then selected the appropriate route. Back to you, John.
Brilliant, thank you. Now let's focus on the really important bit, better security outcomes. Let's face it, when you're investing in a firewall or any kind of cybersecurity technology, you're doing it because you want to be better protected. So let's have a look now at how the Sophos Firewall can give you better cybersecurity outcomes. First of all, obviously you've seen throughout this session, we've looked in a lot of detail at Sophos Central. One of the things it offers is consistent policy delivery right across the estate, and that inherently builds better security because you know categorically that the rules in one office apply in every single location, so you can tailor those policies directly to your organization's needs and make sure you're as secure as you need to be. But of course, having all of your technology from a single vendor also unlocks some additional capabilities as well. So now is a great opportunity to talk about how having all of your products from Sophos allows you to unlock some automation capabilities. Specifically, I want to talk a little bit at this point about synchronized security. So one of the great things about the Sophos adaptive cybersecurity ecosystem is its ability to coordinate the defense matters of separate security disciplines. So here, for example, we've got an endpoint behind a Sophos firewall, and once that identifies some kind of threat, it can telegraph that using the security heartbeat aspect of synchronized security to the rest of the estate. So its heartbeat, which is traditionally green, will change to red, and that's indicating to the rest of the estate that we're experiencing some kind of problem with that device. The firewall can then actually respond to that in two different ways. One, by informing the rest of the estate that that device specifically has some kind of problem associated with it, so that any infection on that device or an active adversary on that device cannot move laterally and move around the rest of the estate. So we're automatically isolating that machine and stopping that malware or that actor from moving around the estate. But then we can also isolate that device off the internet as well. And that's hugely powerful, because if you think for a moment about where the cyber criminals are, they are unlikely to be inside your network physically. They are most likely to be attacking from the outside world. And the moment you cut that device off from the internet, you are then blocking the capabilities of that cyber criminal to send further controls and instructions to that device, so that they cannot really manipulate it any further. What's also happened here is, because we've blocked that device off from the internet, it's now no longer able to exfiltrate data out of the organization. So it can't send anything that it's collated back to its source. We can't lose data that way. If it's a ransomware outbreak, for example, it can't go off to the cyber criminals and request a ransom key. So we can't perform that encryption as a cyber criminal. So we're protecting that device at every step of the way. And then Sophos Central is going to swoop in and make sure that that device is clean, remove any malicious content from that device. And once Sophos Central is satisfied that that device is clean, then it can change the security heartbeat back to green. And then obviously what we can do next is bring that device back into production. We don't want that device to be out of action for any longer than necessary. So once the heartbeat goes green, then the rest of the estate can respond. Connectivity can be restored both internally to other devices, and also we can restore internet connectivity once we know that device is clean. But the important thing is, all the time where that device is potentially compromised, we're blocking all of that access. Another great advantage of having an ecosystem that works together comes down to applications. So a few moments ago we were looking at how it's important to be able to deliver applications reliably, but what if it's an application that we don't already know about? What if there's no signature associated to that application? This is where, again, the endpoint and the firewall can collaborate together. So if we see an endpoint launching an application which we don't have on record at the firewall, then the firewall can actually go back to that endpoint and ask it for more information. So if this is a bespoke application or a new variant of an application, the endpoint can give that information back to the firewall. So the firewall can then create a signature associated to that application, and we can classify it. So once it's been classified, we can then subject that application to all of the rules and policies that you've already seen illustrated. So if this is a bespoke application to one individual organization, it might be super important. Once we've got it on record, we can give it the priority that it needs, and we can allow the application to flow and allow the business to achieve its objectives. Also looking at the power of Sophos Central, not just to coordinate security, but then also looking at reporting capabilities as well. So the Sophos estate is replete with lots of wonderful reports that we can collate from not just one firewall, but also right across the estate as well. So you can see where you are from a security stance, and you can really easily identify which users require some additional security training, for example. And again, Lucian's going to show that in just a second. Just before I hand over to Lucian, if you happen to be a user of our managed detection and response service, then we've got some really good news for you as well. So the Sophos Firewall becomes an additional source of telemetry. So all of the great things that we do in our security operations center associated with the telemetry from endpoints and servers, we can do the same with the firewall as well. And that gives us visibility into areas that maybe we wouldn't traditionally have. So if we've got devices on our estate that aren't protected by Sophos, either because you've elected not to use us as an endpoint vendor on those products, or just simply because they're not able to run endpoint security. You know, for example, building automation, CCTV, printers. These are the kind of devices that can never own an agent, but we can see the traffic coming to and from them going through the firewall, so we can feed that information into our operations center to ultimately give you better coverage and better event correlation. So again, enough from me. Lucian, I'm going to hand over to you just one last time, just to take us through some of those integrations between products and show you how we can give better security outcomes using the Sophos Firewall.
Thanks, John. On this demo, we're going to show you the synchronized security in action. In order to do that, first I'm going to go to my firewalls and make sure that my synchronized security is turned on. Just go into my network, and I want to make sure that I have configured the synchronized security heartbeat. So I want to set up everything on green and also block clients with no heartbeat in order for them to not have access to the network. Once I'm saving this, I can now check into my policy that the Heartbeat Plus is being connected, so that allows the Intercept X endpoint to communicate to the firewall. So now I'm going to connect to a machine and demonstrate how synchronized security works in a live environment. I'm going to open a machine and I will check if I have any network connection. Yeah, I can access the shared drive. Let's check if I have internet connection. All working fine. So now what I'm going to do a simulate attack, and I'm going to go to a specific page that has a threat on it and see if that will be caught by the Sophos agent. So Sophos agent has caught this one, and as you can see now, my agent has transformed from a green status to a red. And now, just to show you, demonstrate how the synchronized security, now I should have no internet connection and also no network connection. So going back to the shared drive to test it if it's working. Again, I cannot access that one. Trying to open a browser. No, it's not working. Let's try a new tab. So no, I don't have internet connection either. So because we've turned off some of the technology of the Sophos agent, we can now turn the agent back to the green status and see that I will be able to mitigate this one and make it as resolved. Now my agent back in green, so I can check if I can access the network drive. Yeah, and also checking the internet. And it's working fine. If I look into the firewall for a second, you will be able to see some of the information inside this one. So I'll be able to see that I have 2 source blocked, and also I have a UT key report that show me the users that are at risk. So I can go into this user and find out more information about it. So I have a relative high threat score for this user, and I can drill down into that one and find more information about that user in order to mitigate the risk for that specific user, and maybe try different approaches and see how we can secure that user and that device better in the future. So now let's talk about synchronization application control and the power that the Intercept X alongside with the firewall will give to the IT administrator. So I'm back to my Sophos Central. So on the right side, I'll be able to see some information regarding the synchronized application and what the endpoint has discovered running into my environment. So I can see I have a total of 108 applications. I have 3 of them organized, but I also have 9 new applications being discovered. Everything can be drilled down into this one, so I'm just going to go a little bit into those new discovered applications. So I have a Microsoft Outlook on that one. I have Slack being installed recently and it hits 36 points. And also I have a Zoom video communication. From here, I can actually go and acknowledge that application if it's something that I'm aware of it working into my environment. But also I can do different categorization and override the categorization that already has been applied to it. So for example, on the Slack, I can customize that one And instead of instant application, I can select for that one to be maybe general internet or conferencing, for example. But for today's example, I'm going to use Zoom in order to apply a traffic shaping policy to that one in order to prioritize the traffic via the voice IP or the quality of the video for this specific application. So currently set up as a voice IP. I'll customize it and make it as conferencing. I will apply the settings. And now I'm going to do a traffic shaping for these categories. As you can see, I already have a conferencing policy here, so I will be able to manage this one. So now I'm going to create a traffic shaping for the Zoom. I'm going to select a guarantee in full HD, and I'm going to apply that policy to that application. Now you can see that the streaming video and for the Zoom, I have a guarantee in full HD for this type of application. Back to you, John.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So allow me now to wrap up. I know we've covered a lot during today's session, but let's focus on those benefits. So looking at a single platform with automated responses leads to a massive reduction in the administrative overhead of a firewall and an endpoint estate. And also because of the advanced protection and those automated responses, this leads to an enormous reduction in the number of security incidents as well. So you bring these things together and it gives real benefits either to your customers if they're managing the estate themselves, or real benefits to you as a security provider if that's the market that you're in. So just to remind you on some of the key points, first of all, the Sophos Firewall is flexible. We have a range of hardware solutions from small to large, but we also offer a solution as a software and virtual machine, and we have solutions available in the public cloud as well. The important thing is not to get bogged down in all of the detail at this stage. Obviously, those things can come over time. Just remember the key 3 sales messages that we have. First of all, that the Sophos Firewall can reduce the overall total cost of ownership of a security estate, that the Sophos Firewall can help organizations deliver applications securely and reliably where they need to be, and that the Sophos Firewall, in conjunction with the wider Sophos portfolio, delivers better cybersecurity outcomes. Those are the key things to take away from today. Next steps. Obviously, talk to your account manager at TD SYNNEX. You've met Lucian already, and obviously they can help you with all of your technical and commercial questions that you might have. You might, for example, want to request a full demo, or you might want to request a trial license so that you can experiment in your own environment with our firewall. Lucian and team are on hand as well to help you with things like sizing and scoping assistance, answering those slightly more challenging technical questions. And of course, there's a team at TD SYNNEX as well, able to help you with the sales and the marketing side of things as well, to help you build messages that you can take to your customers and prospects. So loads of next steps that you can take, and we're here to help you every step of the way. But that's it for today. So thank you very much indeed for your time and attention, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.
We hope you found the content useful and have a better understanding of how you can deliver better security outcomes with Sophos Firewall.
If you would like to find out more about Sophos Firewall, organise a demo for your end users, or take your team through some bespoke Sophos training, then please reach out to the business development team. That's myself and Sean.